time.
Right.
What if the bottom line is they live here? They've always lived here. Maybe they're separated by some kind of a dimensional membrane or something. They can come in and out of our lives. They can watch us when we're sleeping, when we're taking a shower, when we're in the bathroom. They can see us and enter our lives, and we can't do anything about it. People could freak out about that. What if they are us from the future, which has been explored a lot? That maybe we fucked up the planet so bad that we end up looking like little gray aliens sometime in the distant future, and they're coming back to check us out to see the point of where things went wrong. That could be disturbing to a lot of people.
Well, the disturbing thing is that the little gray aliens are some sort of cyborg.
Right.
Then they're genderless, and it seems like they communicate without mouth noises. They just have a little slit for a mouth.
Yeah, some of these have pilots, apparently. I know that's a weird thing to say, but some of them seem to be drones, doing a function. Like the Tic Tac, when it was coming from above 80,000 feet and it was dropping down to sea level, it was Commander Favor's first interview was with me, and he said the best way I could describe it is docking. With what? There was something under the water. Right? That's what was making that white water. Mm-hmm. So the idea that these things were somehow communicating with something under the water is really embedded in the core of that story. If that's true, right? Then these things were coming down and docking. Now, that would be more like a drone, right? Rather than something that is occupied, right? Mm-hmm. These Tic Tacs. The fallacy is people say, oh, look, if anything were to move that way, it must be a radar glitch, because if anything were to move that way, it would instantaneously crumble and explode. And you're like, well, wait a second. The hubris of your idea that we are the apex of technology right now, that the material science we have, that our means of propulsion, like you've said before, used to be horses, bicycles, cars, jet cars, spaceships, right? So now, what does it look like if we had 100,000 years of more evolution, technologically 200,000? What about a fucking million? Do you think that they would have the same atmosphere around these craft to apply that same type of physics? So that's why Commander Fravor said at the hearing, he goes, yes, it is far more advanced than anything from our known physics at this time. He leaves it open that we might not have figured it all out yet.
And do most of these sightings take place near water?
Yeah, a lot of them are. A lot of them go in and out of water. There is some suspicion that maybe they've got a settlement under the ocean, that they could get away with hiding down there. We wouldn't be able to detect them. There's an awful lot of sightings over water, sure, but not all of them. Yeah,
I would say there's a correlation that we cannot deny, that there is a lot of movement in and out of the water with whatever UAP or UFO are, but I would not agree that it is directly connected. These things can and do appear basically wherever the fuck they want. I mean, that's that. For me, getting reports every damn day and George for decades. Dude, this thing is everywhere. Machines that outpace, outmaneuver, and outperform what we have.
Now, do they speculate that all of these different machines come from one particular group of entities, or is there multiple civilizations that are visiting us?
Yeah, they think it's more than one answer. It's entirely possible. Because the craft look different, the beings look different, the reports you get from all over the world over the decades, we don't really know for sure what they do look like, because they seem to be able to change their shapes, at least change how we perceive them in our head. I don't know if they're manipulating our perceptions or what.
I know people are going to hear this and be like, oh, that's this crazy leap that there are pilots to these things. All I know for sure is, okay, UFOs are real. We have technology that we don't know where it's from. We have been reverse engineering or trying to do that. I am solid on those three things. I am also solid on the fact that this has been held back from the American public, no doubt. Maybe for good reason, on some level. But I also know that some of it's been done what we would call illegally. Now that word is really nuanced because of national security. Maybe it's not illegal. What makes anybody think that they just want to give up the goodies now and tell everybody what's going on now? The same tactics that's been used for the last 70 plus years on
Ridicule.
secrecy, ridicule, all that right now is on hyperdrive.
Has anyone come to you and described the different kinds of beings and how many they think there are?
I'll give you a cool story. You'll like this.
Okay.
I talked before about the paper trail, how there is a document, trail of documents that you can look at. There was a chapter in a textbook being used at the U.S. Air Force Academy. And until UFO people found out about it, this is what they were teaching our best and brightest pilots at the Air Force Academy. And the chapter said, in the course of your career as an aviator, you're likely going to encounter one of these things. Here's what we know about them. We know that there are 4 different alien races visiting this planet, and they've been here for thousands of years. Now, that is blockbuster stuff to be teaching future Joint Chiefs of Staff members and commanders of air bases.
When
and
was
things
this
of that sort.
published?
This is in the 1960s. So, but when word of that chapter got out, UFO people found out about it. They pulled it. They yanked it out and took it out of the textbook.
So I'll tell you, man, I've been to the Naval Academy, got to sit in on an aerospace class. It was so fucking cool. And these dudes, I can not imagine what it would be like. They all have to wear uniforms and stuff, and like, you know, what would that be like sitting there reading that chapter in your official textbook? Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that there's 4 different kinds of beings. Well, how did they describe the 4 different beings, George?
Yeah, I don't remember. I'd have to look that up. I'll bet you Jamie can find that.
I've
chapter.
only heard of the grays and the tall whites.
There's the
Jamie, got
reptilians,
something here?
Nordics.
Major Kilpatrick, the second-ranking officer in public affairs at the Air Academy, in a position to speak authoritatively for the Air Force. He admitted at once that plebs are taught from a text entitled Introductory Space Science Volume 2, and an entire Chapter 33 deals entirely with UFO considerations. He quoted from page 455 that 50,000 virtually reliable people have reported sighting unidentified flying objects. This leads us with the unpleasant possibility of alien visitors to our planet. The 14-page chapter continues, or at least alien-controlled UFOs. According to the Academy textbook, if such beings are visiting Earth, 2 questions arise. 1, why haven't they attempted to contact us officially? And 2, why haven't there been accidents which would have revealed their presence? Why no contact? That question is very easy to answer in any of several ways. 1, we may be the object of intensive sociological and psychological study. In such studies, you usually avoid disturbing the test subject's environment. 2, you do not contact a colony of ants, and humans may seem that way to any aliens. Variation. A zoo is a fun place to visit, but you don't contact the lizards. 3, such contact may have already taken place secretly and may have taken place on a different plane of awareness, and we are not yet sensitive to communications on such a plane. What does that mean? In releasing this interview with the Leemore Advanced, we are well aware that many readers will certainly raise an eyebrow or 2, but Major Kilpatrick insisted the above chapter in the text is not a fairy story. At the end, he seemed to go along with the recommendations of the physics textbook, which advises Air Force officers as follows. The best thing to do is keep an open and skeptical mind and not take an extreme position on any side of the question.
Astonishing, isn't that?
Wow.
I have a copy of the original textbook, the chapter. I'll find it for you somewhere.
This is what's fascinating to me. Such contact may have already taken place secretly and may have taken place on a different plane of awareness. Yeah. And we are not yet sensitive to communications on such a plane. What does that mean?
It's just an Air Force textbook, dude. Don't worry about it.
Wow. 50,000 credible sightings they're citing. And this is in
66, I think, is when that chapter was out.
Wow.
Maybe they just let that guy slip in a chapter. I mean, that's crazy.
You know, and then the skeptic would say, why aren't we seeing them more?
Other crazier things, man. I think that, so you know that was like by design, though. There was the Robertson panel. So like there was this huge flyover of UFOs in 1952 of White House in Washington, D.C., 2 weekends in a row. I mean, everybody, I think Time Magazine did something on it. It was fucking big, right? They said, oh, no, we didn't send out any jets. Turns out they did. They couldn't catch these things. So 1952, huge flyover of DC. They hold a press conference, and they're like, basically, we don't know what these are, but they don't seem to pose a national security threat. That was like the line, right? We don't know what these are, but they don't pose a national security threat. So then they did this study. I think it was called the Robertson Panel. I'm terrible with this shit, but I think it's called the Robertson Panel. And they determined that the UFOs might not pose a national security threat, but public interest in them might. So their job was to demystify the UFO topic in public, make fun of it.
Right. That's what Operation Blue Book did.
Oh, they totally dismissed it. Swamp gas comes from that.
What's fascinating is the man who was responsible for Project Blue Book was Dr. J. Allen Hynek, and when he left Project Blue Book, he became the forefront UFO investigator. And said, I think that a lot of the things that I investigated turns out were real.
He felt guilt, right? He
Really?
felt, yeah. I brought an Omni magazine for you. I forgot to bring it
When did he do?
too early.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy was cool as shit,
Yeah.
But yeah, he, just for people that don't know the basic of it, this guy was like, I'm an astrophysicist, I think astronomer. And man, he was involved in Project Blue Book, and he was realizing they're making him try to diss all this shit.
Yes. They were trying to find rational explanations for people seeing things that seemed preposterous.
And what was it called? The London Committee or something? So basically they just were trying to make it go away.
So we know they have a history of doing this.
Yeah.
We know they have a history of actively trying to dismiss these stories.
Oh, yeah. To the point where part of the operation, like you read about that church committee where they'll put people into communities to disrupt them. The words would be to shape the emerging UFO narrative to this day. Now, why you want to shape it? Why would an intelligence agency want to shape this? Let's just get the information out there, right? I guess there's power in controlling the UFO narrative.
Is there also like this disdain for the intelligence of the average person? Is that part of it? That they're like, these fucking people don't need to know.
Well, if it's sitting on something really fucking, why would they want to give that up, man?
Well, they do believe that most, I think, politicians and people that get into great positions of power start to believe that they're better than the average person. Some cops have that. They have a us versus them mentality. And I definitely think that lawmakers and, and the like would have that as well, especially people involved in intelligence agencies. I mean, that's part of the gig, is that you have access to stuff that the average person does not, because you can handle it. And you're trained this way, and this is how you behave, and so that information comes along that's really fucking wild. Like there's this interdimensional spacecraft that can just appear over the ocean and disappear, and you go to fucking chase it, and it faster than your eye can follow. It disappears over the horizon. Like, what do you say and do about that? Like, what could possibly benefit them to release that information to people like you and me?
Yeah. First of all, everybody I know in government's fucking cool as shit. They're not like some egomaniacs. A lot of people think this information, the basics, should be public, and they think it's a crime that is held back.
But there's just policies in place can't violate.
Yeah, there's policies in place, and the main thing, their security clearances are their jobs, even when they're out, right? So
Right.
if you lose that, you're out, it changes your fucking life. You've had this whole career that you're doing, but people I know in these positions have access to this information, whether we believe them or not. Like they're good people. I think they want this information to be public, and they think it's bigger than themselves. But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing finally representative government representing the public's interest to know about this. Now, is there anything under the... Let's find out.
Do you think that them releasing information and having these discussions is their way of preparing us for the inevitable? That maybe this is the best way to do it, to get some information out there and say, we have recovered off-world crafts, and we're seeing things that are not ours, and the propulsion systems are not based on any known physics or that we have a grasp of. That when they're telling us this, it's because they think that this is all it's gonna blow up in our face, and so we got to get some information out there to prepare people. Otherwise, we're gonna have a collapse of society. We're gonna have a UFO landing on the White House lawn and panic in the streets, and that they think that somehow or another they can mitigate some of the more negative aspects of that by releasing some data now.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
A lot of people have said that, to me, and even said, maybe you're a part of that and don't even know, and that's why you're getting like videos and
Right.
All that. The thing is that the reality, though, if someone could just see that, the reality is the people I know that are fighting for this inside and creating the language, trying to get this to happen, it's not organized from the diabolical, or even like, it's not even organized in a way. It's like pressure. They knew, you know what I mean? It seems so mysterious that it almost looks like Machiavellian, like they're just getting the public ready. But in fucking reality, dude, I don't think it's that organized.
That makes more sense because things aren't that organized.
It's just not. People know each other. A lot of the people kind of fighting the good fight about UFO don't even know each other, man.
Right. So they're just slowly but surely, the overwhelming amount of evidence is causing people to have these discussions and force these discussions.
It's my theory. Is we're talking about it now, and it's not fucked to talk about it now. You can have these conversations. A favor come forward.
Do you feel like some of the stuff that you've been shown that you're not supposed to show, that it would really benefit society to release that stuff? To the point where you almost feel compelled? Like how much different do you think the conversation would be about UFOs if people saw and knew what you know? Not much different? A little bit different?
No, because no one trusts, like you could have a live alien on this podcast and people would say, it could be an actual live alien.
I think already Elon's been on 3 times.
I did not believe his last thing about not being interested in UFOs, by the way.
Well, I feel like that might have been motivated at least slightly by the fact that he smoked weed on my show and got in trouble with NASA.
Oh, don't do that, huh?
That's what I was thinking. When he was so quickly dismissing it, well, they sure are subtle. When he was saying that, I was like, well, wouldn't they be subtle? Like, what would they be doing? Unless they're trying to freak us the fuck out. But when he smoked weed on the podcast and got in trouble with NASA, I would imagine that you'd want to show yourself as a respectable ball player. I'm here to play ball. I'm trying to get funding. I'm trying to launch my rockets. We're all on the same team, boys. I need that top secret clearance.
I'm curious. They film the launches. If they have any footage of those launches being observed by what we call UAP or UFOs, because I have a pilot, and he gave me he was in this lucky position during one of these launches where he was the closest plane, and he gave me footage of what looked like, objects like lights up observing this launch.
Is one of the SpaceX rockets?
Yeah, bro. And so the thing is, it's anything you shoot out of a commercial line, like it has to go through a process, so it's not something that like legally you could put out. But I am curious if Elon's company probably films the shit out of every part of those launches. Wouldn't it be interesting if these unidentifieds, whatever they are, were kind of observing us playing with these rockets?
Maybe Elon needs to strap a nuke to one of those things.
And bait him. Would he tell you if
me? No.
He wouldn't tell you if they
Definitely
filmed any of
wouldn't
those
tell me.
things?
Nope.
I don't know, because
I'm a
you're
pothead
interested
with a big mouth.
No, actually, you know what? You can keep a secret.
Oh yeah.
No, I've learned that. That's really cool.
Oh, I'm good at keeping secrets.
Yeah.
When it comes to stuff like UFOs and if there was a secret that like affect mankind, and, people are gonna die, I would tell people.
Right. Real quick, let them know.
I'd be like, hey, folks, we got a problem.
There should be panic. Like let's say this all goes well, and there is actually something under the hood with the UFO thing, and that this congressional language, it does bring forward people. Like, fuck, have Bob's already said everything to George in 1980. But people that have security clearances, let's pretend as well.
I would like to sit down with Bob again, because I wonder what the experience has been like for Bob with the documentary coming out and then being on the podcast.
Let's grab him. Let's get him.
Let's get him back in. Would you think he'd do it again? Comfortable about the attention?
I asked him about that again for you. And, Bob doesn't, he doesn't even get that people want to still talk with him.
He doesn't get why.
He doesn't get it. Yeah, he doesn't get why people want to still talk with him.
I'm a Bob Lazar fanboy.
Totally. If we didn't even talk about UFOs, we'd have the most fun fucking
Well, when
conversation.
we went to dinner with him,
Yeah.
we had a great time.
He always tells me the craziest shit just about...
Well, he's some crazy shit that we can't talk about.
Right.
Yeah, which was wild. Which explains a lot
I
about
know.
his education history and a
I
lot
know.
of other things. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, it also explains about like why he was chosen as,
Yeah.
And
I verified that further, by the way. So here's the deal. I think he almost likes that be dismissed. What if everybody believed Lazar?
Right.
How fucked would his life be?
He'd be fucked. Yeah, he's easily dismissed, which is kind of good sometimes. I think one of the things that was more interesting about or one of the things that was interesting about your documentary was when during the documentary his lab got raided.
Yeah, people said, "Oh my God, I wanted to kill people." People said I fucking made that up I just made up the raid, like hired actors and FBI shirts and shit. I swear to God, that was like a huge deal.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
People probably think you're in the FBI.
Oh yeah,
something.
it's so fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, paranoid schizophrenics that are just running around accusing everybody of being a spy and being part of government agencies and what have you.
But isn't it just easier to dismiss what somebody says if you can just dismiss them as being genuine or honest?
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a complex subject because it seems foolish to spend any time thinking about it without anything really tangible. It's like everything is speculative. Everything is he said, she said, and here's some data, and it says a thing that's going faster than the speed of sound by, a factor of 20 or something like that.
But I'll argue there's tons of evidence. There's tons of evidence. Now, there's the human intelligence side of it, which is just you talk with people that have no reason to lie.
Yeah, but
they got multiple
people
witnesses.
do lie.
Tons of people do.
People are crazy.
But you can sort out if 1%, right? And I'm so good at that now. You get a call, you end up talking with somebody, you fucking know almost immediately if there's an angle, if there's an agenda. Why do people do stuff? They do stuff to get stuff. I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of information out there not public. I'm certain of it, actually, that there's a lot of information that's not public that should be. UFOs are tangible. There is a tangible aspect to them, a mechanistic machine aspect to them. The weirder question is that a performance? If something is so advanced, couldn't they make you feel, think, see whatever they want you to see?
Right. Couldn't be, look like a tree. Yeah. Couldn't they, fly through the clouds? I knew a guy who was schizophrenic who I knew he was a little crazy, but I didn't know how crazy. And one day he shows me his phone and he shows me these pictures of clouds. And I think I'm just looking at some cool clouds. And he goes, "See it? You see this one? You see that? You see this one?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "I see them every day." I go, "What are you seeing?" He goes, "Alien spacecrafts." I go, "What?"
Yeah.
I go, "You see alien?" I go, "I see clouds." He goes, No. These are alien spacecrafts disguised as clouds." And I'm looking at him and I'm just recognizing. I knew he had a screw loose.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how many of those guys are out there thinking they're seeing things?
I've got the cry folder in my emails.
Cry?
Yeah, it makes me really sad, man.
Oh?
Because,
Schizos?
dude, people have these incredibly painful experiences that are not UFO related. But that's a way the mind can rationalize what's wrong with you. And I get them all the time. And I put them over here like, probably needs medical attention, right?
Right.
Luckily, there are some major universities that are quietly studying some of these biological effects.
Biological effects of close
encounters. People that claim to have close encounters and
whatever that. George, I think that you're probably like one of the most important figures when it comes to journalism in UFOs. And when you broke the Bob Lazar story, is that 89? When was that?
89.
1989, I remember reading about it. I remember hearing about it. I remember watching clips on television and watching countless Bob Lazar interviews. It all came out of you. I mean, did you think at that time? I mean, what was your thoughts about UFOs before you had met Bob Lazar, and how much did it change while you got to know him and hear his story?
Quite a bit. I had not really given it much thought at all. It's probably the same level of curiosity as most people. You go about your life, you pay your bills, you go to work, you love your family, and it's always out there somewhere. Hey, I wonder what the deal is on that.
Right.
But had not really dwelled on it until it was a day in 1987. Into the studio was a guy named John Lear. And I had heard sort of a little bit about him. His family was famous. His dad developed the Lear jet, the 8-track tape. John had run for the state Senate, and he had a certain amount of credibility with our news organization, KLAS-TV, because he had helped us break a really big story. And the story was the stealth fight F-117. He had told my boss, Ned Day, managing editor, about this amazing plane that was invisible to radar flying up in Tonopah in Area 51. We had an interest in Area 51, not UFO related, but Ned broke that story. It went national. So John Lear comes into the station one day with a stack of what turned out to be UFO documents. He plops them on Ned's desk and says, Ned, this is going to be the next biggest story, the biggest story in history. It's a UFO cover-up. Aliens are here. Technology's been recovered. Ned takes a look at it and says, I'm not doing this story. If it was true, I'd already know about it. This is crazy. Well, I'm eavesdropping, as I tend to do. I'm a curious person. So as he's going out, I said, Lear, let me take a look at this material. And I looked at it. I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. At the time, I was producing and hosting this little public affair 30-minute interview show. It would air Sunday morning at 6 o'clock. Nobody watches it. It would be interviewing a city councilman, a county commissioner. What the heck? I'll put Lear on there. And I let him go. And he told me this big scenario about secret treaties with aliens and recovered technology and a giant cover-up. Some of the information was outrageous. Some of it seemed like it would be worth checking out. Suddenly, the phone starts ringing off the hook. I'm getting calls about people that, who was that guy? What was the deal on that UFO stuff? Is it real? I had him on again. 6 months later, the response was bigger. I had him on a third time with a guy named Bill Cooper. I regret that. He told him an even more elaborate conspiracy.
He's the big pale horse guy?
Yes.
So I was like, what in the fuck is this?
The JFK assassination. And,
everything. Base moon, aliens are there right now.
And he had this scenario where he had seen these documents when he was in the Navy, and he's going to tell the world about it, then he's going to go away. Well, every time he told the story, the documents got bigger and bigger, and anybody who criticized Bill Cooper became part of the secret government, including me. So we do this third show with Lear, and he hints that he knows a guy who might be going to work out at 51 and knows something about alien technology. That guy turns out to be Bob Lazar, but Lear didn't give me the name at that time. A couple months later, I am anchoring the 5 o'clock news on KLAS, and we have a nightly or evening segment, 5-minute segment, live interview. Our guest doesn't show up. We're scrambling to find somebody to fill that hole, and I thought about Lear. I called him up, not knowing what had been going on in Lazar's life or Lear's life, and I said, hey, is your that UFO guy you told me about, is he around? Would he do an interview? Just turned out that Bob had been through the ringer. A lot of stuff going on in his life. He felt threatened, and he said yes. We had to black out his face. We do this interview, and he spills the basics of the story. I worked out there at a place called S4. I saw 9 flying saucers in an underground base. This is technology that came from somewhere else. I'm in fear for my life. Holy cow, the phones start ringing off the hook. My news director comes rushing in, the station manager. Is that for real? What's the deal on that? And we realized we had touched the pulse of the public in a way that I didn't really understand. We arranged to go meet Bob Lazar, my news director, Bob Stodall, and I, that following weekend, and put him through a paces where we would ask him questions about his background and how he got the job. And we spent a couple hours with him, and we walked out of that meeting thinking, holy shit, what is true? This is really risky for us as journalists. It's risky for our personal reputations if it blows up in our faces and we do this story, and it would really damage the reputation of our news organization, which is KLAS is a jewel. It's always been a leader in Las Vegas, one of the best TV news operations in the country. We're putting a lot on the line. Well, look, we decide, let's take our time. Let's look into this guy's story. And then in order to understand Lazar, we'd have to look at the bigger picture of UFOs. So I started a cram course on ufology, and I read everything. And I spent 8 months like cramming for a final exam that never happened. I read everything. I interviewed people. That same year, MUFON its international symposium in Las Vegas, and there all the world's UFO people came right to me. I got to interview them, traveled around, went to Los Alamos. Lazar took us into the lab. We took cameras in there. He walked us around waving to people. We didn't even have to stop for security. Took us into the lab like it was a rabbit going through its own burrow. He knew his way around. We were allowed to take a camera in there. We put those stories together, put them on the air in November, and man, it just went through the roof. Every night of this 9-part series, people got the audience got bigger, phones ringing off the hook, people calling, giving us information. Suddenly, it's on something called Paranet, which was sort of a precursor to the internet, and it was huge. And it changed my life for sure. I had no idea that there were so many people out there interested in the topic, and I was hooked. And I really got hooked on Lazar, not only because his story. Personally, I was interested in him. We became friends. I saw what happened to him after that live interview, and in the 7.5 months before we went and I revealed his identity. People were really messing with him. I mean, you cannot convey what it was like, how weird it was then, breaking into his house, leaving the windows open, messing with things in his home, breaking into his car, leaving the doors and windows down, just messing with his head.
And you think that was the guy who was doing that?
Yeah, I do. And then, so I had put out a call to people, hey, I want other people to come forward.
This is before his identity was revealed. Yeah, we should explain this.
I'm actively seeking information from the public. If you ever worked at Area 51 or S4, you know anything about this, you're at Nellis Air Force Base, reach out to me. So I started getting calls, and 6 people right in a row who had talked to me on the phone and offered to give me information were visited right after the call. One of them was a guy who did tax returns for people at Nellis Air Force Base, and he had got to know these really well and got information about crashes. There was a guy who was a golf pro at Nellis who had gone on out road trips with officers and told him about this weird stuff out at Area 51 that seemed to be from somewhere else. He gets visited and told to shut up. There was a lady who worked in the court system. A cop told me about her. And I talked to her on the phone, and she had worked at the court system, but before she had worked for a company called Holmes and Narver, which is a defense contractor. And she said she sat in as a stenographer in these meetings and heard these conversations between the government contractors and Air Force officials about crashed saucers. And they would, after the meeting, they take the tape out of the typewriter and destroy it and take all the notes, and she agreed to tell me this story. It was just a tiny piece of the story. The next day, she's visited by these 2 guys in suits. They tell her, look, you are still subject to your security clearance. I hope you know that. And then they said, we know you traveled to L.A. to see your daughter, and we know she comes here. It's a big desert out there. It'd be terrible if something happened to either one of you. This lady is scared shitless. She didn't make that stuff up. So 6 people who had offered to give me information on the phone, one right after another, get visited. And it made me mad. It also made me mad that dealing with, trying to fill in pieces of Bob Lazar's life. Now, I know there's some gaping holes. I know it better than anybody. I've had to deal with it for 31 years. But I always thought if he worked at Los Alamos in classified projects in a scientific or technical capacity, then it would make sense that he could get hired into a program like S4 as somebody who thinks outside the box. Despite personal shortcomings or whatever, they might bring somebody like him in to help them crack a problem that they hadn't been able to resolve themselves. So I focused on Los Alamos. I knew he had been there. I talked to people who remembered him from being there, but the lab kept telling me, no record of him. He's never here. And then I showed him, well, look, I've got the Los Alamos newspaper. It's a small town paper. There it is on the front page, a front page story. Bob Lazar, physicist, Mason facility, Los Alamos lab. It's a story about his jet car. Nope, still have no records of him. And then I found his name in the phone book from the era when he was there. He's in the lab phone book. He had been hired by a company called Kirkmeyer, which is a company that's a headhunter that fills positions at Los Alamos and places like that. So great, I'll reach out to Kirkmeyer. They said, yeah, I hired him. Yeah, we've got records. Can I get it? Can I get his employment records that would show where he went to school, whatever information you guys had? Yes. A couple weeks go by, nothing. Couple more weeks go by, I call him again, I start writing them. I've got a stack of letters that thick. It went on for 2.5 years, and finally, by the end of it, they said he was never here. We don't have any records. That pissed me off. It made me mad, and I think that is really what got me hooked in the story, is that I was being jacked around by government and national facilities like that.
We should explain the Los Alamos thing, because the Los Alamos thing coincided with him doing work at MIT, right? Is that correct?
He's explained it to me. Yeah.
The way he explained it to me, I don't think I'm at liberty to say what the project was, because the project, the way he was describing it, is essentially internationally illegal, like what they were working on. And that's one of the reasons why he was saying, he explained what the project was. It sounded very feasible, also very evil. And then it was basically a weapon. And then he said that this was the reason why there was no actual record of him studying at MIT. It wasn't important that he got a degree. It was important that he understand the technical specifications of what they were attempting to accomplish.
It's my understanding as well. Yeah. And, it's always been the most problematic part of his background. And it's where a lot of people in the Bob Lazar story, that's where they stop.
But the thing is, when you listen to him talk and when he describes things, it's very clear he's educated.
Oh, he's a brilliant guy. But I had always told him, and Bob, you're my friend. I want to have a conversation with you about these claimed degrees, because I didn't believe that he'd ever sat down. In those days, you go to a college like MIT or Caltech and get a degree. You've got to take classes in something other than science. I could not imagine Bob Lazar taking an English lit class to save his life. But he is a brilliant guy. I'll give you an example. In April, COVID thing is raging. My wife and I are staying at home. We're getting packages delivered for food and things of that sort. I'm a little worried. They didn't know about contact, whether you can get it off of cardboard boxes or whatever. And I mentioned to Bob in a phone conversation, I'm thinking about buying one of these UV screener systems. He goes, wait a second, don't buy one. I think I've got the parts that I can make you one in my garage. And a week later, it arrives. This thing, he's got it in his garage, handmade, this big scanner with these UV things that works. He just whipped it up in his garage.
I'll remind you, got the scanner. I got a laser gun.
Right.
You got a laser gun?
I did, man. It is super powerful. So it's like a handheld toy that he retrofitted with a superpower. So I'm like lighting shit on fire in my house.
So it looked a handheld toy, but it's actually a real laser?
Toy with full noise, but he put a diode in there, and it's super powerful. Like it can light shit on fire. My wife hates that shit. So I got the laser gun.
You also got the flamethrower, though. Lazar made a flamethrower. This is before your buddy Elon made flamethrowers.
No comment,
yeah, well,
it's a massive
he made one. He made a flamethrower.
Obviously a very intelligent man.
Yeah.
When you listen to him talk, there's no bullshitting going on. When he talks about talks about undeniable, concrete things, when it comes to science, when it comes to elements, when it comes to propulsion systems, he clearly knows what he's talking about. And the really confusing thing for people that are detractors is he really hasn't changed his story in 31 years. It really is the same story, and that's really hard to do.